When you first went in and seen all these machines going together, you couldn't hear. You couldn't hear anything. And you had to make your mind up, either you're going to work there or you weren't going to work there. There was no, they gave you a job, they were doing you an honor. You got a job and this is it. There was no, today, like, they bring you in, they introduce you, this one, there was none of that. I got your job, can you come to work Monday? Ooh, oh, great, you're so thrilled you got a job. And you go in, you see all this machinery and all this stuff and all this noise and hear all of this stuff going on, and you say, oh my God, but you just had to make your mind up to it.
Lowell, Massachusetts began as a textile city in the 1820s. The original workers, Yankee farm girls, were replaced by immigrants, Irish, Greeks, French Canadians, Polish, and others. Each group settled in distinct districts within the city, yet men, women, and children from all the groups worked in the textile mills. The mills began to close in the 1920s, and most were gone by the 1950s. This is a look at the lives of some of the lost women to work in these mills.
Well, I was 8 years old when we come from there to this country. So anyway, a friend, my mother's brother were here, that was it. And he wrote to her, and he said for her to come to America. So that's what it was. That was just 2 years before that. So my father saved money. I don't know how he did it, but he was paid better than he ever did. So he saved $50 to come to this country. $50. What made you come to this country? He says, well, I get sick and tired of working, he says, from sunset to sunrise to sunset, he said, and that's what you do in the old country.
Like I was born in Dover, New Hampshire. Then my mother died. I was 12. And at 13, we left Dover and we came to Lowell, Massachusetts, because my father's oldest brother didn't want us to start working in the cotton mill. Dover was all cotton mills. Sawyer's was a woolen mill. So we came, and I was 14 when I started working.
So after the last year, we was planting some tobacco. We used to plant tobacco too. And I says, my God, I says, I hope we go out from here. I was too young to work so hard. So I was praying to get out from there, so to save myself from working so hard, Maybe I thought I come here, I find something better. But when I come here, I stay out from work a whole year because I was too young to go to work. Anyway, I sent and I got certificates from Greece to be older so I can go to work before. So I was 13 when I started to work. So that's how it happened to go to work. Anyway, instead of getting better, I was worse. I got in jail worse. I work harder than over there. At least over there I was out in the air, out in the sun. But here I work in the mill for 27 years, and in the first shop 20 years. That's the worst jobs you can work. Dust and fur. You inhale all that dust in your lungs. So many years. Thank God I'm still alive. you know.
They had to come from Lowell. They used to call it Little Athens. Everybody that would come from Greece would come here in Lowell. And everybody had somebody in Lowell. Even now, you can go over through the United States, you say from Lowell. Sooner or later, they would know because they had passed from here.
Well, it was the year of the famine that was starting in Ireland, you know, the time that everything was starting over there. And my aunt had a boarding house here, and it was on Tyler Street. And she brought my mother's family over one by one. She brought them over, each one, and come to work in her boarding house. And then when they got here, she got them jobs. But the only place to get jobs was in the mills.
And boys and girls came from the same place in the old country, or nearby. So, no, there were people that they'd know. If anybody came across and somebody would say, well, I have no room in my house, would you have a bed for him, so-and-so? And my mother would say, yes, I have an empty bed. And so that's how they come in.
That's a dream everybody had. They would come here, make a little money, and go back and work on their land. But it never works that way. Once they were here, she was here 5 years. When my uncle, which was a cousin, we call him uncle, decided that it was time for her to get married.
Well, I come here to make a little money, to work for money, you know. And work and make money to go back, but never go back. Married, and my husband didn't want to go back. I like this country better, and here I am here.
And she never left she always used to tell that story. She never came out of that room from the time she got on that boat until she got here with seasickness. She said she was so sick she didn't care whether she died. That time it used to take 8 days to come over. 8 days of being sick and all alone.
And then when we come, when we see the houses, you know, different houses, different things like that, oh, I says, my God, we start crying. We didn't like it here at all, you know. We was with our friends, you know, strange, and people don't talk to us. We was strange in a strange place, and we feel very lonesome.
Oh, I felt very lonesome. I cried for 2 weeks, morning and night. When I went to bed, I was very lonesome. But after I started to get acquainted with people, you know, it was much better. And then when I got a steady job, it was much better because there wasn't too much work at the beginning.
Well, I remember getting off the train and meeting my father, and it was so strange to me, very strange, because in the old country where we lived was a one-room apartment. Everything was there. It was large. And when I saw all these rooms, and I said to my father, oh my, that's like a palace, Daddy. And he says, no, it's just an apartment.
They all wanted to come to America. And when we were growing up, they always said, because the streets of New York were lined with gold, and when you came to New York, you always found money. You never had to worry anymore. So one by one, I think that's mostly what they came over here and found out that there was much difficulty over here as there was over there. But there was money coming. There was no money in Ireland. I don't think they had any money. I don't think they had anything. They were farmers, more or less.
Somebody says there's work to be done, there's money out there. Oh, there's one case my father said that they used to say that the minute you get off the boat, you'll find money. And one of my uncles, he would say, the minute I got up, I did see a dime. He says, oh, I'm not going to stop picking up from now, he says. He thought they'd just have to pick it up from what they meant is you're going to work, and boy, they work. They didn't mind the work, but there were times they didn't have the jobs.
Well, around Little Canada, they were all French. Every one of them. I mean, you know, you didn't find one. I mean, you know, you didn't have like Italian, Portuguese, or anything like that. Like they used to have. Now, the acre by the Highlands and Gorham Street, and that was Little Italy. They used to call that Little Italy. Over there was Little Canada. The Irish used to be all around Merrimack and, you know, around that part. And then the Greeks used to all be around, you know, where the Greek church is there, and they all, Market Street and all that, that used to be all the Greeks.
There was mostly Polish people around there. Charles Street, Winter Street, Summit Street, up back Central Street there, up on the Alamo Street, all Polish district. It's just like the French people in Little Canada. They're all French there. Now in back Central Street, they up around, I can't remember the streets now. There are all Portuguese people up there, the Portuguese churches. They all have to, now in Centerville, there's a place there where all Polish people up there. Up on Bridge Street, up around First Avenue and all those places there. They all had a section of their own.
As we went to school up here, we got acquainted with the people on the street, but we stayed on our own street. We very seldom left our own street. I don't think I ever came out Lawrence Street past the Black Bridge or past the White Bridge till I was grown up. You had enough on your own street, and we all went to the same school. We all had the same ideas, and most everybody did the same ways, you know. And we had maybe one Swedish person on the street, and the rest were mostly Irish.
Well, there were a couple of girls that came from, I think, Swedish background, and they, of course, would be Lutherans, I think, which would be a Protestant sect. I don't think it ever occurred to me that they might have been anything but Irish. We lived in the same neighborhood. I just thought they were Irish Protestants, I think, at the time.
Oh, positively. First thing is church. And that's why I can't understand the youngsters today. Half of them don't go to church, but God, we'd never, if we couldn't go to church, we didn't go nowhere that day. Sunday afternoons, we go up the boulevard and walk up there. That was quite the thing. Everybody bought candy down on Merrimack Street in Candyland and walk up eating candy up the boulevard.
All on Sunday, well, we'd go to church on Sunday and then go visit. You know, everybody go and visit in some place on Sunday. And on a Saturday, they'd get together in different houses. Anybody that lived downstairs, and they'd have dance parties. They'd have anybody that, you know, they knew fellows that played accordion or a clarinet or a violin or anything, then they'd make the band, and they'd dance, and they'd have lunches. And they really, really enjoyed themselves. Every Saturday night there was somebody.
The church would hold dances, and they would have them, the halls, the auditorium, that we used to pile up. We used to go in groups. Nothing went in by itself. I don't think anybody went by themselves. Everything went in groups. My girlfriends and I would go in groups. And my mother's time, no, they didn't go to auditoriums or things like that. Would dance at home.
The Greek people, they stayed together. They were living in Market Street, Dama Street, and Suffolk Street, Broadway. All around there were Greek people on the same place. After they built up the housing, they knocked all the houses down and they built the housing, then they're all scattered around, all over. No more Greek community anymore.
Oh yes, I don't think there is an Irish community anymore. I think a younger generation is outgrown the Irish community. I think they'd stick together, and when you say a name or you say who it is, where they're from, we go back and say about the things we did, and the things we did when we were, you know, when we were kids and things like that. But I don't think it's the same at all. Even Ireland isn't the same.
Before in this church, no Irish people, no French people, nobody go. Just Lithuanian people. The full people, just Lithuanian. Nobody else don't come. Yeah, but now when you go, somebody told me, say you go in the church, you say I couldn't find a Lithuanian person.
The time I went with my people, I'm Greek. The time I was around here, I'm American. With my neighbors, you know, all the other nationalities, I'm American too. Both things I mixed.
This is my country now here. I go visit. I see my relatives. I have wonderful relatives over there. They write me all the time to go. I have a good time when I go. Wonderful people. But I couldn't stay there. I miss this house. I miss this country. When I see sometime, I stay one time 18 months there. They made me stay. Why don't you stay here for good? I says, I can't do it. I can't do it. When I see somebody talk American, my God, I jump up like that. My country, that's my flag. Yeah. I love my Greece, my own country, but I love this one too. And you know how many times I said, a person, it was better if I would never go back again altogether. Because, you know, when you know two countries, you're not happy anymore.
They worked hard. I remember my mother telling me that she remembers when she first started to work in the mill, and she was 12 when she did, that she remembers going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark. So that would have been a pretty long work day.
Oh, another bad feature that they had in all the plants was you got to be a friend of a friend of a friend, not only to get in, to keep your jobs. If there was a layoff, if you didn't have anybody, you would have been laid off.
Person to come in and get a job, like they mostly all started as spinners and worked. The men used to do some of the spinning, and they'd start in as a dwarfer. Then they'd work their way up to be a spinner. And when she got to be a spinner, she'd get her sister in to be a dwarfer. When her sister was going with something, she'd get her friend in to be a dwarfer.
And then she went to what they call the Massachusetts mills. And the man that was not superintendent, he hired the people, like the super, she used to call him, the super. He was a great friend of my father's. So when he saw her on the floor, as they call it, I guess all the women just stood on the floor, and he'd come out and pick who he wanted to go work. When he saw her, she only went one morning. When he saw her, he said, "Come on, Minnie," and off she went. And she went right back to sample weaving again.
So I was old enough to go to work then, 14 years old. Well, I went to the boot mill. That's the first place I thought of going. And I got a job there in the weave room. Well, I did get the job. I was a battery girl putting on the batteries for the loom was there, and this thing was round, and it had spools of yarn thread. And I think there was 30 in that one roll. And I had 20 looms to put the batteries on. Boy, that was work. So anyway, and it was so noisy in there, very noisy. And I'd come home, and my mother and father said, "How did you like your work?" And I just sat there and didn't pay any what. I didn't hear them. I didn't hear one word my mother was saying to me. And my father says, tapped me. He says, "What's the matter with you? I'm talking to you." "Oh," I says, "What did you say? How did you like your work?" And he really screamed because I couldn't hear him. That's how bad it was. The first day was wicked. It was terrible. Then my father said, "I don't think you should go back there. You might get deaf or something." "Oh," I said, I know. But so I went back for 3 days. Well, later on, I got used to the noise, and I could even talk to the people that were working with me.
Well, it was cotton. That's all you can see. We go outside with a cotton on our heads, flying all over, dust and everything. I was working in the spinning room. You know where they spin the cotton, and then they fill it in the bobbins, and they bring it down to the looms, weaving room, and they weave it to make the cloth. The Merrimack Mills was making velvet. The best velvet you could buy was Merrimack Mill.
You know, you had to be 18 to go to work. Some place they hired you at 15, 16. It all depends, you know. But I went to work, and I worked at Newmarket in 1939. And I worked there 10 years. And we were making $10 a week. $10 a week.
All the women they all had families the same as my mother. My mother had 4 of us, and then there were some of them that had more children than my mother, you know, and they were all around. So, no, most of them that were mothers didn't work. They stayed home. That was what you did in those days. You stayed home with your kids.
Oh yeah, they had to work. They were taking their kids to their hands, on their arms, and the milk on the other arm, and the diapers on the other arm, and her lunch. Take it to the woman, leave the kid there, she go to work, and then at night, she comes from work, she goes to the place there where she left it to a woman. She take her kid and her dirty diapers and come home and wash the diapers and fix the lunch. And that's the life they were doing, the married women.
Oh no, in those days, no. Mothers didn't go to work. My mother had 13 children.
Because, hey, 12 children, my mother had to work too. My mother worked at the boot mill for years.
Now in the Merrimack, about every summer, the mill would close down for 3 months waiting for orders. And there was no unemployment then. There was just no money coming in. And so that way, you know, you'd start up in September. And you'd work then right along all winter. And it was like that most every year for quite a number of years.
Well, sometimes we work a year. Let's say now one year we work full. The next year they start slack, you know. Well, go out, stay out for a while. Sometimes you work 2 days a week, sometimes you work 3 days a week. And they just to keep you there so you won't go to some other place. We try anyway, but every places was like that. Slack all over.
When they decided to close down, you know, go south for cheaper help, which they weren't overburdened with money at that time. So he did 48 years. So when he came home and said the place was going, of course, naturally, he was heartbroken. So I said to him, well, when you took the job, they didn't tell you it was going to be steady.
Well, you know, a lot of the mills went down south now. There's the Appleton. I worked in the Appleton mill, yes. Oh, I worked in the Appleton, yes. And I worked in the Hamilton mill. And the Appleton mill went out of business. They went down south. So did the Hamilton. So did most of the mills in Lowell went out south. Well, you see, they were paying more money here than they do down south. The labor was cheap up there. So that's how they moved out from Lowell into down south.
I guess everybody was poor in them days, but nobody knew it, you know, because there was no distinction. Everybody was the same. But, no, we always had food and clothes.
The root of all evil is money, but you can't do without it. If anybody says you can do, no. If you have money, it'll make you, not make you wild, but at least it'll make you comfortable. Later on, you feel the money gives you a protection, which a poor doesn't. I can see if you don't have any money, there's nothing to look forward to. But once you have all the money in the bank, it gives you a different feeling.
If you worked in the mill, you were a mill rat. And, you kind of hurt you at first when they said it to you, and then after a while you'd say, yes, but the money's clean. As clean as you're making. See, I mean, you had to learn how to cope with it because you had a dirty work. You had to wear calico dresses and black aprons, and your hair was always oily. You was always in oil. You were always in yarn, and you were always full of yarn all over you. And you had to learn how to treat the people that thought you were below them. And if you didn't, they just sat on you. That's how we did in the mill.